Hey folks, welcome to the Freakopolis Times, our podcast mostly about stuff related to our comics and game shop, the Freakopolis Geekery. We're Ian, Tyler, and Troy, and we run the shop and talk to people all the time, just like in this podcast. Join us and some occasional guests as we talk comics, games, pop culture, and just about anything else that pops up. Remember, while some of our topics may get a little geeky, they change up pretty often, so hang in there and maybe the next one will be more your style. By the way, this podcast is video enhanced on YouTube and Spotify. Check it out that way if you like visuals with your talk. You never know what might show up. Now, let's do the show.
Instead, let's talk about awesome, goofy stuff. Dad, I know you're super pumped to introduce our fan base and the world to Freakopolis' newest original creation, Lug and Kilgore.
Yeah, we've got some new characters in the works. Lug and Kilgore mostly came about because of our new TikTok channel.
Yeah, we were thinking.
Kind of decided we needed a new turn for that, and to try a new angle at talking to gamers and role-playing people and tabletop gamers, and take advantage of some of our production capabilities and do a little bit of an animeem.
Yes, yeah, I suppose if that's what we want to call it. Yeah, you've done quite a bit of animation stuff in the past, and now we're putting those skills to the test once more with these new characters, one of which is an orc and the other is a cosmic amphibious soldier.
Yes. Almost like a space marine.
Almost, yes.
But not tied down to any one particular IP.
We can say that he is definitely not a space marine, given that, some people apparently own that combination of words.
Right.
Right. So that's not what he is.
He is not. He's a cosmic amphibious soldier.
With an obsession with skulls.
And huge pauldrons.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Rather imperial sigils.
but they're going to tie in also with other characters that we've introduced before, like our Osmond the Wizard character. So people will see, throughout the Lug and Kilgore experience, they'll end up seeing some of our other characters. There'll be certain ways that things overlap. We're pretty excited about breathing some new life into what we do with animation, a new approach for how we, lay it out on the screen, how we can work with it optimized for that TikTok mobile platform. So I think it's pretty exciting. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully it connects well with people.
Yeah, we'll have the Freakopolis expanded universe.
Right, exactly. If it goes well, you'll be able to get your swag here at the shop.
Right.
And it's a little different from the previous animations we've done, in that they'll likely be shorter, sort of more concise little clips.
Yeah, quicker hits, kind of in and out, drop a punchline or some sort of a gamer inside joke related quip, and move on to the next one.
Yeah. It'll be fun for compilations and stuff when we get to that point. But it's definitely different. We found that, even 30 seconds of animation is a huge investment of time and effort. And even though you can see some of our attempts and how far we've come and what we've done on our YouTube channel, I think that this will be, Lug and Kilgore will be characters that you'll see quite a few bits out of. And it'll be really funny to follow their continued growth.
Yeah, and we'll probably talk about it some more here on the podcast as we do different things with it. So this is the place to kind of get the inside view of what we're doing with our animation work. And animation, by the way, has always been a part of the plan for Freakopolis and the Freakopolis Geekery. We've tried a number of different approaches to it, and I think they were all valid and good. Mm-hmm. But, in today's world of so much media, finding the right combination that really makes something take off takes a bunch of work, and we'll see if maybe this next one is something that people find interesting.
I like them.
Yeah, they were very fun to voice over.
They're goofy and talk about stuff that we love.
Yep. It's easier to write about it because
they're pretty meta. Yeah. In a Freakopolis sort of way. Yeah, and look forward to getting a sweet Lug shirt. Tyler and I, we should have a
okay.
Represent our characters.
We'll get on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Lug headbands. House of the Dragon wrapped up last night.
Yeah, season finale, right?
Yeah.
10th episode. The last episode we'll be getting for quite a while.
I'll say I've seen much worse television.
Absolutely.
Was the finale? I mean, we don't want to get too deep into spoilers, but was it a letdown, or I mean, did it go in a direction you thought it would take? What's the general consensus here?
Pretty much, it went in the general direction that they were sort of setting up for things to go in. They focused on some characters we hadn't seen in an episode or two very much.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool to see. There was some things I thought were a little, some of the special effects, I thought they could have gotten some different shots on, but overall it was very enjoyable.
We've talked, though, about how most of the directors only really direct like 1 or 2 episodes per season, and so it becomes kind of subjective to their influence as to how those shots are angled, and sometimes it can make it a little bit contrasting to prior episodes.
Yeah.
Which might have been done a little more subtly or a little more in your face, and then suddenly you go, oh, but someone else entirely was behind this. You know?
I mean, it does feel like directors of a show like that kind of need to have an intimate knowledge of the characters, of the environments, and how everything works together. And I would believe that they would have needed to have seen previous works.
You would imagine so, though. Of course, sometimes shooting doesn't happen in order.
Right? Yeah.
And in that case, I imagine there's a lot to it. To all these meetings and all the people that take place in putting this production together. But you had mentioned that, like, when a new director steps onto the set and starts telling you, this is how you act for this scene. It's like, well, I've already been acting this character for, some hours, some scenes.
Yeah.
And now you're going to put your spin on it, which I'm sure they come to an agreement and respect and stuff. But you can sometimes kind of taste that from episode to episode, for sure.
I think a big part of what a director does there then must be, camera angles, cut lengths, probably involved deeply in the editing process. Some guidance to the actors, but I would believe that you got to let the actors play the character that they know how to play.
Yeah, it definitely puts a lot of pressure on their performance.
Guide them, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let them play their characters. There was really only an episode or two where I was like, they could have shot these scenes differently. But I still got what they were going for almost every time.
So story-wise, I know Rhaenyra they were going to try and get rid of her or counter out. So in general, is she counted out now?
No,
by no means is she out of that game.
I was going to say, this final episode here was setting up
for the greater conflict, yeah. Which is pretty wild. I think that this season, as a piece of television, is quite a bit of an accomplishment because it spans over 30 years of time in its original setting, that is not an easy thing to do by any means. I don't think any show I've ever watched has attempted to follow lives in a dramatic fashion so closely over so much time.
Right.
But it also, as far as those directors go, I get that there might be some criticism over it, and rightfully, it's difficult to watch, but part of the point of this season of television was, I think, to highlight as a piece of art how accustomed we are to brutal martial violence, people being decapitated and bisected. And if it's with a axe, it's easy to watch blood go everywhere. But if it's through birth, a different kind of violence, or more subtle types of violence, coercion and stuff, then it becomes all of a sudden much more uncomfortable to witness. And I think that they were just trying to push, as a piece of art, us to kind of reflect, why are we all right with one and less so with another?
Well, I mean, and that's some of the reason, like, I don't watch the show because I find it a bit too visceral. And not in the combat stuff, but in the
theme.
The various depictions of human suffering that they seem to want to play out. And I know people find that intriguing to watch, but personally, I don't really have any interest in it.
Yeah, ever since, the Greek tragedies of old, people have enjoyed watching people go through trial and often fail.
Right.
Well, I think they nailed it. Sort of to put it in reference to The Boys, has some very visceral stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes you cringe.
Yes.
Yeah.
But House of the Dragon, with their, sort of different take on things and the amount of splicing together from childbirth to a battle, those were way tougher to watch.
Yeah. Their use of imagery and symbolism is very powerful throughout. And I think that they did deliver quite well with this season finale in making me want to see a season 2 big time, and hoping that it is given a nice big blank check from HBO in order to get 3,000 extras on a field for some mass battles and some wild, crazy stuff that is inevitably going to happen in the upcoming conflict in that setting. And they, those actors and actresses are phenomenal. I think they really sold what must have been, while exciting, a difficult proposition. Like, enter one of the most cursed IPs and make your mark on it. Try and impress a very jaded fan base. That's not an easy thing to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody went into the season expecting it to be a bomb, but it sounds like it really kind of redeemed the franchise.
At least there's a glimmer of, hope for its future, and it continues to deliver quality television. So I've mentioned in the past, Resident Evil 4, I talked about it. The Black Bass Challenge.
Oh, yeah. You keep going back to the Resident Evil.
Yes. Well, they're doing a good job with this series of games. Ever since Resident Evil 7, when they really took a look at the franchise and said, Resident Evil 6 is not even in the same ballpark as the rest of the games released in that IP. It is not a survival horror game, it's an action game. And it wasn't received as well because of that. And they were told to look at themselves and figure out what Resident Evil really is. And they did a really killer job with Resident Evil 7 and their new engine, the RE engine, which does not stand for Resident Evil. They make a point of that. Everyone's like, the Resident Evil engine? They're like, oh, no, that's not it.
Right.
But ever since that, they've really been doing a pretty killer job with their remakes and stuff. And finally, we got to see some Resident Evil 4 remake action, and it looks like a beautiful modernization and readaptation of a legendary game. But as I watch it, and the Dead Space remake, and the Last of Us remake, and all these other things, I wonder, have we entered an age of all development time being dedicated towards rehashing things I've already played?
Well, I'm not a big fan of remakes personally.
Yeah.
And that be that in movies or video games or any of that stuff, it just seems like unnecessary. And why don't they write something new? I mean, I guess I'm feeling like if they're remaking Resident Evil 4, what are they keeping? Like the voice acting?
No, it's been updated with new actors. They're keeping the environments, the encounters, the general gameplay, though there's
certainly enhanced.
Yeah, there's some big differences at the same time.
is it that they just know that, okay, that formula worked. And so as long as we stick closely to that formula for the story and general gameplay, then it'll be a success.
I believe that's the case. Also, people my age are nostalgic for this game. We played it when we were 12, 13 or so, and it kicked ass. It's awesome. It still is awesome today and holds up very well. But now they know that they have a dedicated fan base that clamors for this title. Upon any mention of it, they're like, oh yeah, that's like one of the king of survival horror games, which I agree. I say it all the time, And as a fan of the genre, I can't deny that playing through it again, reimagined and with the power of current gen machinery, is pretty enticing for sure. But yeah, stepping back, these remakes are, there's so many of them now, and I feel it's as though it's a little, it isn't, I feel as though it's tough to say, but it's a little lazy, right?
Yeah. They've already got, like you said, the layouts, all the enemy types, all the characters, what they're going to say, when they say it.
The storyboard, the map design.
Right.
Yeah, it's all there.
Is it so that you don't have to pay writers again?
No, for real, right?
Yeah.
And it's just becoming more and more commonplace, which is a little bit concerning, I feel, because while I do respect these titles, often the pieces that are made by standing on their shoulders, the backs of giants, are going to be what I'm really going to enjoy in the modern day instead of returning to those giants again.
Okay, but what if this is like a new part of the development cycle where while the creative teams slave away for years creating these new IPs to impress the masses, they're able to crank out a remake or two to keep their skills sharp and
to keep the artists hired,
right?
And stuff,
the developers and coders and everything needed for that sort of thing.
Sony has pretty unabashedly said that The Last of Us remake was pretty much so that Naughty Dog could be practiced with PlayStation 5 hardware. They said that, and there's a few other reasons, of course. That's their statement. We've already given more than enough reasons in this podcast, but that definitely speaks to some degree of a shift in the industry where these dev houses are so big that in order to keep everyone hired to always have a project on the table, sometimes they have to look to the past.
I think one of the interesting things too here is there's also, in addition to remakes, there's also remastering.
Yeah.
Right. And I can't argue very much with remastering because it's really keeps the original programming, keeps all of the original, content that can be kept, and it just reworks graphics and optimization for new platforms.
Yeah.
So, remastering seems to make a lot of sense. Remakes, it's almost like now they're planning remakes when they're making the original.
Yeah. With the new God of War coming out, the 2018 one is almost 5 years old. There's got to be a remake on the table.
Yeah. And like Harry Potter, are they going to, remake the Harry Potter movies?
Lord of the Rings.
And Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just make them again with new actors?
It certainly doesn't seem to be off the table that they will go back and remake even such beloved things as those because, well, they sell. They do. I gotta say, I'm kind of a sucker. I'm gonna buy that Resident Evil 4 remake, There's no stopping me from grabbing that. It's been a long time since I played it, and it looks phenomenal from the preview that they gave. But yeah, the question still lingers on my mind. Am I just feeding into a new kind of process where the old becomes new endlessly?
I guess to some degree, like we've seen it many times with Spider-Man getting rebooted in the movies.
Yeah, every actor gets 3 goes at Spider-Man, then we need a new one.
Yeah, exactly. Batman's been through that same sort of process as well. So I mean, it's not uncommon. It is interesting to see it happen though, because Batman and Spider-Man, they've been around for 50 years or whatever, and they've been re-envisioned by various
pop culture icons. Yeah,
and different artists and writers have to take the book. I mean, that's just the nature of that. But because it's a serialized book that comes out every month, And so many stories have been told and retold in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Although it doesn't feel like every video game and every movie needs to be remade over again.
Yeah, that is very true.
There is a lot of cool new games coming out, though.
There is. It's actually kind of an exciting time. It feels as though that ball is rolling once more.
The next
And
few
what are you
months
looking at?
of gaming are going to be pretty cool. I know there's Blood Bowl 3 that I'm super excited for in February.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, that game is being made in Unreal Engine 5, right?
Yes, it is. It should be a pretty, I would assume and hope, a pretty graphically pleasing way to play Blood Bowl.
It looks pretty awesome from the little tidbits I've seen. You just always have to hope when you're making a sequel to a game like that it has more content than its predecessor, when often it's the case that they trim a little here and there and it ends up being just kind of a different version of the same thing.
I have a feeling that's probably what it'll be for the first 5 years that it's out, until it gets all of its DLCs and whatnot, because they can't resist that.
Yeah, that's the nature of development, is to put out a quote-unquote complete game.
Sell 6 DLC for a third the price of it, and
Yeah. Not that I despise that too much, because certainly games are larger than they've ever been to begin with. But sure as heck you can make more money selling little tidbits afterwards, too. That one's pretty exciting, for sure. You've played a lot of Blood Bowl.
Oh yeah. Then we've got Burnout, or no, Need for Speed.
Need for Speed.
Yes.
Yeah, this new Need for Speed, which has 2D kind of anime elements.
Yeah, it looks like it's got some cel-shaded effects, tire smoke, and different kinds of neon effects going on.
A lot of it inspired by kind of street art-esque look. Yeah, which is pretty cool. In fact, I like it because Need for Speed has been pretty stale. It suffers very much so from the problem of never quite living up to its best predecessors, where it doesn't know exactly what it wants to be. It's like, is it a tuner-based, you build up your car, street racer, or is it an exotic collection type game where you don't tune them at all and you do individual races? Is it open world? Are cops involved? Do you play as the cops?
Yeah.
They've
tried a lot for a racing game.
But finally, this one looks distinct, and as far as they're promising, they say it includes, all your favorite features from the prior ones. It is a tuning and an exotic collection and a cop racing and cop playing game.
That sounds pretty good. I'm intrigued. Most Need for Speeds don't match Burnout Paradise so far. But
that is the grand standard for open world racing, isn't it?
Pretty much. That
map design is incredible.
Still to this day, one of the best.
It should be studied. If you're going to do that genre of game, then look at Paradise City, because it is really amazing.
They've got so much good stuff going on in that game. It's one that I still play. It has a lot of variety and a lot of options, and you can jump in and play and have a really good time. And the interesting thing is that franchise and Need for Speed kind of came together under EA, and they merged them.
Yeah. Criterion was disintegrated by the great EA death laser. But those devs, their DNA is inside of Need for Speed.
You do see it in some of the stuff that goes on in Need for Speed. I hope we see some more of it in this next one.
Yeah, and, taking a risk visually, I can respect that. It looks cool. Also, it's current gen only, which is a pretty cool move, I think, for Need for Speed, because they could have very easily done another cross-gen game, which may very well have held them back, at least in frame rate and resolution, but maybe per se in loading screens or the size of their open world or the feeling of speed. It actually takes a good amount of processing power to do per object motion blur and that kind of stuff that really sells a sense of speed in those games. So hopefully those devs use their time with current gen power well, and maybe it will end up being the definitive Need for Speed, of the last, 6 entries.
Right.
One can hope.
There's also, of course, God of War Ragnarok.
Right, that's actually coming out pretty dang soon.
It is, within, a little more than 2 weeks or so. And that game promises to have the blank check budget of Sony, along with, it seems, though it is cross-gen, some cool implementation of current-gen power where they're doing, the 4K 40 FPS on HDMI 2.1 port hardware, which allows you to get a really, really smooth experience with really high resolution and a lot of detail, as much as the devs can pump out, which I enjoy a lot for those types of games, for sure, especially the third-person action ones.
Specs like that are a little weird, though, if you have to meet them with specific hardware.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it does take a pretty modern TV to be able to capture that well. You have to hope that the devs did a good job of implementing it. There's also a targeting 120 frames per second mode, which generally on PlayStation 5, those sit around anywhere from 70 to 110 frames per second.
Right.
Can be a smoother experience, especially with a variable refresh rate implementation. So a lot of cool stuff going on that end, but of course it is still a cross-gen game, not taking full advantage of that hardware. There's going to be a lot of points where you shimmy between some rocks as a hidden loading screen that doesn't actually need to exist.
Oh, right,
yeah.
right. I forgot about that. Where
Pushing open a huge door to
yeah.
get to the next place.
Sometimes, I'm sure on PS5, that door will take 10 seconds to push open as compared to 47 seconds on prior gen hardware. Mm-hmm. But it's still going to be there, They do as good of a job as they can of making it part of the presentation of the game so that you feel like it never actually happens. But at this point, with their promises of no loading screens, it's almost going to be noticeable. It's going to be well, that's definitely a little loading screen.
Right. No loading screens that look like loading screens is what they're selling us.
I'm fine with that. It works.
Of course, Insomniac, one of Sony's other favored child.
The Spider-Man team.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2, they've reaffirmed is going to be current gen only. And they, I'm sure, will promise on everything that Sony has said this hardware can deliver, because they're the ones who have come up with ray tracing that really shouldn't be possible on that hardware, and their temporal injection for frame rate stuff that saves so much processing power. It's crazy. A lot of PC stuff uses various AI upscaling in order to save on processing power and get a lot more frame rate out of your games. And this does the same thing on console through their own techniques, which is definitely something Sony loves.
Yeah, Sony's developed a lot of proprietary stuff that ultimately ends up becoming mainstream and used in many companies' stuff. I mean...
under their umbrella, that technology is going to be shared big time.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah. It's...
Well, and often even broader than that. It depends on what the technology is, but CD-ROMs and DVDs came from Sony.
True enough, right? So... That's hard to remember for me.
Well, I was there.
Yes. Any other games on the horizon that were calling out to you?
Oh... I'm sure there was another one or two there, but...
Resident Evil 4 VR remake?
Yeah.
Actually...
Yeah, I'd give that a try.
It's going to be a thing, I'm sure, and that will be a wildly intense experience.
If you like to be scared out of your mind,
yeah,
then VR is a great way to do survival horror.
Yeah, they know it. And devs love survival horror because they can be pretty cheaply made, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not so expensive, and they are effective in the VR environment.
Looking forward to that being my intro to true VR, being scared witless all the time. Get this thing off my head!
Always thinking there's a dude with a chainsaw puttering behind you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, though.
We're going to have a Halloween special next week.
Yeah, we're going to be jamming it out Busting real good.
Halloween event at the shop, you mean?
On our podcast.
On our
Oh,
podcast.
true enough, right?
We'll have to wear our costumes.
Well, we promise you listeners, next
We're costumed up.
podcast we'll all be dressed up for the occasion. No, actually, we are having a Halloween event at the store as well. You could drop by Sunday the 31st, I think. That's going to be
Sunday the 30th.
the 30th. I knew there was some kind of discrepancy there. I'm not good with dates. Sunday the 30th, drop on by. We're going to be all dressed up. We're going to have a good time. Candy and
It's
sales.
a good opportunity for people to get another use out of their Halloween getup. It's a day before Halloween, so a little bit of practice in applying your makeup or putting on the costume.
Yeah, getting into character.
Yeah, bring it in, and we'll be running an online photo contest of costumes that people wear that day, and there'll be a cool prize attached for the winner.
If you could have like a professional cosplay level costume of any character, who would you be?
That is a good question.
I'd probably go with Iron Man.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Abraham Lincoln with his bastard sword.
Right. Or zombie killing axe.
Mhm.
Vampire killing axe.
Yes,
That's what it was.
Vampire Slayer Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
With like the prosthetics and everything,
Right.
Make my cheeks and my jaw look like him.
Big bushy beard.
Mm-hmm.
Top hat that hits the ceiling. I was gonna say Austin Powers. Professional.
Callback.
Exactly. But looking at the Deadpool over there, professionally done Deadpool costume.
Oh, that would be pretty
Would be
sweet.
sick.
Yeah.
He's got quite the costume this year.
Yes, he's masked up twice
He's
over.
going to be tough to beat in the costume contest.
And that about does it for this one. If you like hanging with us, please subscribe through your favorite podcast directory. Join our Discord and check out our shop, the Freakopolis Geekery. See you next time.